I've been using Starlink internet from SpaceX for 3 months now, and I really don't have a choice for good internet besides that. Before Starlink, I was using an LTE hotspot, which was very slow, and so Starlink is an option I actually rely on and need and use. So I wanted to share my experience using Starlink for 3 months with you and tell you why it's probably not for you, even though I've had a great experience. So I love nothing more than the comments I get when I talk about Starlink on YouTube or Twitter, and I am flooded with responses about how their internet is faster and cheaper and has lower ping. And if you have super fast fiber internet, awesome. Leave your comments down below. Tell me how fast it is, how low your ping is, and then hit like and get subscribed. Starlink isn't for you, and that is awesome. I am so glad you have really fast, really good internet, but that is not the point of Starlink. Starlink is not to replace a fast, reliable fiber wired connection. It is for places on Earth that don't have a good internet connection or don't have any internet connection at all. If you want Starlink, it costs $500 for the kit, and it costs $99 a month after that. You can expect speeds up to 300 megabits per second. I usually experience slower than that myself, and as of now, there are no data caps, and it doesn't seem SpaceX is planning for any data caps. I live in Livingston, Michigan, which has a lot of rural areas. I live rural, and there is no wired internet to my home. So besides that LTE hotspot, I have no other choices. So Starlink, for me, is a great choice. So overall, Starlink has been awesome for me and my family, but I first want to talk about the negative experiences, because if you're thinking about getting Starlink or if it's going to be good for you, of course you want to know what's wrong with it, why you probably wouldn't want it, rather than just hearing how awesome it is. So to start off, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. No, we have had rain and snow, a lot of snow over our 3 months of having Starlink. Now, the good news with that is the service did stay connected throughout all of the snow we've had. We had 8 inches at one time and all of the rain we've had, but you will see slightly slower speeds, and you may see drops in connection that last a few seconds, but luckily these don't affect most things unless you're talking about gaming, which we will cover in this video. So when I first set up my Starlink, I was having a lot of connection issues, and on the little map that shows you the satellite's obstacles, I was having a lot of obstacles that were directly over the Starlink, which made no sense because directly over there's nothing. And so I contacted service, and Starlink service, while their responses were a little slow, they are very good. They're incredibly nice, and they actually refunded my first month of payment, my first $99 payment. But service had me go through, of course, the normal things of rebooting the router that comes with Starlink, and they said on their end it looked like there was something wrong with my Ethernet cable, so I unplugged and replugged that. And after talking to them, it did fix my issue, so that was really nice. It took a couple of days of troubleshooting and rebooting the router, but once that was done, I haven't had those connection issues come back. Now, we have also had 2 outages in the 3 months that I've had Starlink. One outage was worldwide and lasted about half a day or so, if I remember correctly, a little less than 12 hours, I believe. And then the second outage was actually earlier today, the day I'm filming this video, and it lasted, I think, 2 or 3 hours, but there were kind of scattered reports online, and we still have our LTE connection just kind of sitting there ready to go. So I was at work, I had my wife just switch it back to the LTE connection because I didn't realize there was an outage at the time and she needed the internet. So we switched it back. By the time I got home, I just switched it back and everything was working again. We didn't really have to do anything about it. Now, the last negative that I really have that's kind of consistent with Starlink is I use the Ethernet adapter, which is not included. You have to buy separately, and I route that to my own router that I had set up in the middle of my house. It's just kind of already a really nice setup. The Starlink Wi-Fi, I have the modem in the basement, which is not the best place for a Wi-Fi router to be, and the Wi-Fi is weaker than the router I already had set up. So I use the Ethernet adapter to go to that router, and every, I don't know, it's happened like 2 or 3 times, so it's not very common, but the internet connection on Starlink works fine. So anything that's hardwired to Starlink, or if you connect directly to the Starlink Wi-Fi, works great, but our router will lose internet for I don't know why. And I actually can't reset the router. I have to reset the Starlink modem to get the internet to go back to our router. Now, this is, you know, a 1-minute operation. You just unplug and replug the Starlink, and then boom, it's working again. There's really no issues, but it's kind of a weird thing that I've been experiencing that I thought I would share. So if you're getting Starlink and finally gonna have good internet service to your home, you wanna keep your connection protected and safe with today's sponsor, NordVPN, which has a special deal for its birthday celebration. Do you want to stream something not available in your country? Nord has over 60 countries to choose from. You can unblock geo-restricted servers and watch content that normally wouldn't be available. It's easy to use. You can connect with one click on any of your devices, Windows, Android, Linux, iOS, and macOS. You can even auto-connect to NordVPN for zero-click protection. And you won't be slowed down with your new fast Starlink internet because NordVPN is a great choice with amazing speeds. Confirmed by speed tests, NordVPN is the fastest VPN available. So try NordVPN today with Starlink or any internet you're using for fast, secure internet access by using my link below to get up to 2 years free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Quite a good deal. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video. Now, speed tests are fun, and of course I did a lot of them when Starlink was new because I was so excited to see upwards of 100 or 200 even megabits per second versus the 10 to 15 megabits per second download I was seeing before Starlink. But speeds have actually slowed down just a bit for me. I typically see anywhere from 80 to 120 megabits per second, which is still way faster than what we had before, so really nice. I will see speeds as low as 30 to 50 megabits per second sometimes on speed tests, and occasionally I will get a test that's over 200 megabits per second. I'll sometimes see 250 or so, but I've never seen higher than that, and it's not very typical. Now, speed tests are fine, but actual usage, the download speed is amazing compared again to what I had before. It's all kind of relative to what internet you are looking for and what you're used to. If you download, say, a huge game on Steam, you'll see your download kind of fluctuate over time. It'll get higher and lower as the satellites are passing overhead, but I have seen on Steam 25 megabytes per second download, which of course times 8 is 200 megabits per second. So I have seen that 200 megabit per second speed in actual real world usage downloading large files. On the topic of speed, we talked about downloads. Let's talk about other use cases. Now, streaming, things like Netflix or whatever streaming service you like to use for video, is awesome. It is flawless on Starlink. Well, I guess I shouldn't say flawless. Very rarely you will see the picture degrade just a bit as it buffers a little bit more. This is on Netflix, for example. Of course, different services handle this differently. But we never have the video cut out, which on our old internet, every once in a while we'd get it so the whole thing would stop and it'd have to load some more. And all the time it was dropping the quality constantly throughout a show to kind of catch up on the loading. With Starlink, we can go days without seeing the quality drop at all while we're watching shows. And as far as totally pausing to load videos, either on YouTube or Netflix or whatever, that really doesn't happen ever. Web browsing is awesome. Everything loads really quickly. Sometimes you'll get these little drops, which I will talk about in the next section in installation, where the service is gone for anywhere from, I don't know, 4 to 10 seconds, something like that. And if you happen to click a link, right when that happens, you'll notice it's kind of hanging and you'll be like, oh, okay. And I kind of know, oh, Starlink. And then, 2 seconds later, okay, it loads up. That's pretty rare, but every once in a while it does happen. Now, this is specific to my setup because where I have Starlink right now on my roof, I do have slight obstructions right at the bottom of the range of where Starlink needs to see. So I want to talk about installation. My Starlink isn't in the final position yet. I did order a new mount for it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I used the official mount from Starlink, the short pole or whatever they call it, and it is just way too close to my roof when installed correctly. And the way my dishy faces, it faces the north, and so it puts the bottom of the dish right close to my roof. And for the most part, that's not a problem, but when we get a lot of snow and that snow melts off, it makes ice and those icicles connect to the roof, which can damage the motors if the dish tries to move, which, to be fair, it doesn't move very often, but if it tries to move while it's kind of frozen to the roof like that, it can cause problems. So if your dish is gonna face so that the dish will be over the roof, I definitely wouldn't recommend the short mount. It's just not gonna work for you, and it's not gonna work for me. So I did order a new mount to get my dish farther from my roof and also make it just a little bit taller, because right in the bottom of the section of my satellite's visibility, there is some blockage, some obstacles you can see there, and that is just from the tree line. I don't know if this will be worse in summer once the trees fill in with some leaves, but this is the new mount I ordered, and it is quite a bit taller, and it's nice because I can put dishy on it and then raise it up and tighten the bolts once it's high up in the air. So that will be my final place. And then I drilled a hole in my house and put the cable through. And as of now, my modem is just sitting on the floor because I want to do the final setup before I really, get everything nicely prepared. But that doesn't matter, just sitting on the floor, it's working fine. So now I want to talk about gaming with Starlink, because this is probably the biggest weak spot depending on your setup, because of the obstructions I have that will give me a few disconnections here and there a day. say about once an hour we get a 5 to 10 second disconnection. You will really notice that while you're gaming, depending on what you're doing. So playing fast-paced FPS games like Apex Legends or something, if you have one of these disconnections, say it lasts for 15 seconds, which is really long, they're not typically that long, but your whole screen will freeze and you're just kind of stuck there waiting for your connection to restore. Now, this is really game dependent. In Apex Legends, for example, the game just continues. You're back in the game and nothing bad happened. Some other games I tried to play with friends would disconnect and kick me out of the game when we'd have a connection like that, which was very frustrating and made it pretty much unplayable if I was having disconnections. But to be fair, I can go multiple nights, I can play games for a couple of hours, and I won't experience one single disconnect. Now, I meant to make this video before 3 months. I was going to make it after a month or something, and Starlink got lucky that I waited as long as I did, because I actually used to get a lot more disconnects than I do now. Now, like I said, I'll experience one per hour or maybe one every other hour or something like that. They're not really evenly spread out. I used to get a couple an hour, and some nights I would just be so frustrated with online gaming, I would just turn everything off because I would get those disconnects. Now again, I think it's mostly due to the obstructions that I have from the trees, but to be fair, the app would not always list them as obstructions, it would list them as other reasons. And so I wasn't exactly sure if that's really why, if it really was from the trees or not, I couldn't tell. When you have a stable connection, ping is pretty good. Of course, it depends on where you are and where the game servers are. But on my old internet, for example, my LTE, my ping on Apex Legends, that's my main example for now, would be 90 to 100. Sometimes I'd get down to 80. Now with Starlink, my ping will be in the 50s or 60s, which is a noticeable difference and really helpful. I will see it sometimes go up to 90, but it usually doesn't sit there for long. It's normally more in the 50 to 60 millisecond range. And then every once in a while, if you have one of those little mini disconnects, which happen more often, I'll see the ping kind of spike up to 200 for just a second. I'll kind of do some rubber banding in the game. But to be fair, with my old internet, I was always rubber banding anyway all the time. So it's, for me and my experience, it's really not a downgrade. It's very much an upgrade, but you'll have to keep that in mind. If you have a slow connection that's more stable, that's probably better for gaming, but I am not a professional gamer. I don't care if I have a little bit of lag here and there. It's still perfectly fine for me. But say you have a wired DSL connection, you get, I don't know, 10 megabits per second down or 5 down. That could, I'm not sure, but that could be a better situation for gaming because you don't need much speed. You need a stable connection with low latency. So overall, Starlink satellite internet is a huge thumbs up from me. Highly recommended if you have poor internet, no internet. Definitely a game changer for us. It made everything so much faster. It helps me upload YouTube videos faster. Now, upload isn't excellent. I'll get anywhere from 15 to 25 megabits per second up. Sometimes that'll dip down to 5 to 10, but typically it's around 20 megabits per second up, which is 3 to 4 times faster than what I had before. If you do want to try out Starlink, SpaceX gives you 30 days to try out the equipment, and then I think you can return it all for free within 30 days, if I'm remembering correctly. But if it doesn't work out for you, if your area is not good, you have too many trees, whatever, the only thing that can be hard with that is you can't always set up your dishy appropriately in those 30 days. I've seen some people erect huge towers that are 50 feet tall, which I think look really cool, but my wife said looked terrible. For me, it took a while to get up on the roof and really mount everything appropriately, especially because it was getting to be winter soon. And of course, when there's snow, I'm not going up on the roof. And now I'm waiting until spring to install my new antenna mount that I'm excited for. I think will make our connection even stronger. But again, overall, hugely recommended by me. I'm loving Starlink. The experience has been amazing. The upgrade to internet has just been so good. So if you have poor internet or no internet, you would love Starlink for sure. I guarantee it. It's a very nice service. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave those down below. I'd be happy to answer those for you. And you will see me in the next video.